Good morning or good afternoon or good evening wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome owner and chief executive officer of Shower Toga, Kressa Peterson. So welcome, Kressa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Kressa, firstly, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you please share with us how your career or entrepreneurial journey started and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I've always been an entrepreneur ever since I was quite young.
Yes.
I think the only actual job I had was probably when I was 16 and I worked at a fast food restaurant. And after that, I realized that working for somebody else probably wasn't going to be good for me or for them.
Yes.
So,
You should say that.
so
I can relate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot. So I don't blame anybody for maybe not wanting to hire me.
Yeah.
But I've always been an entrepreneur. I had an advertising agency back in Texas where I was growing up. I started that very young. And, that grew. And then I ended up getting involved in show jumping as a sport and became a broker for high-end show jumping horses.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really kind of, off the wall career, but did that for quite some time. My husband and I also owned a home building business in Atlanta, Georgia. So we've had a lot of, both of us are just real entrepreneurs. But what I will say is I had never manufactured, done a product, worked in retail, handled anything like direct to consumer. So everything I do with Shower Toga is, I'm a complete virgin to that process.
Yes.
So it hasn't come
naturally.
Just because, it hasn't come easy just because I'm an entrepreneur. I think the only reason I've been able to make it work happens to be because of my mentality as an entrepreneur, because it's a lot of tough, hard days.
Yes. And it's not a picnic by any means. I think people just see the glamorous side of the end result, but they don't know the blood, sweat, and tears or time that it took to put in. So
right. I probably make $8 an hour.
Well, it's amazing. So you are the Shower Toga investor, a proud Mark Cuban company of season 10 of Shark Tank, which is obviously an incredible achievement. So can you share with us how you became an investor or how the opportunity of being part of Shark Tank happened for you?
Well, actually, I had been wanting to pitch to the Sharks for, quite some time. I applied for the show. And it took me a long time to get on. It took many, many months for me to get on the show as, to pitch Shower Toga. I was not, told yes right away. I had to really fight for it. I happened to have a couple of producers within the Shark Tank company that really believed in me and really believed in Shower Toga. And so they were on board, but the executive producers were not necessarily on board. They didn't feel like in the beginning like I was ready. Again, we were fairly new, but I just kept trying and hustling and proving myself to them. And in the end, my girls, Heather and Zoe, who worked for Shark Tank and casting, were able to get me an invitation to go to LA. Now, when you get to LA, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to pitch. They can, you can be cut at any time. And I just kept crawling my way up that process, and it ended up being an amazing thing. I've become friends with all the producers at Shark Tank. I love them all now. When we finished our pitch, it was so much fun because Heather and Zoe were able to kind of look at the rest of the producers, and they're like, "Hey, you wanted to cut her." They're like, we know. We're glad she's on. And it turned out to be one of the best episodes of season 10. I actually I was invited by the executive producer and the executive casting director, Mindy, to go to an Emmy panel because casting was nominated for an Emmy. So Mindy and I were able to go to the Emmy panel in Hollywood and discuss, the show and the process. So I think in the end, it worked out to be amazing for me. And I hope it also worked out to be amazing for them. But it's just because I kind of like really, really hustled and struggled and, told them that I'm 100% on board in this process. And yeah, it worked. And it's not an easy process. And, I think a lot of people think that, you get the first call back from Shark Tank and I did this too. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in. Like they called me. That's just the first of many, 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 many flaming hoops you go through before you ever stand on that carpet. And I think it's also to weed out the people that maybe don't have the tenacity to hang in there, because once you stand on that carpet, it is the most surreal moment that as an entrepreneur you can experience, and you have to be able to hold it together and hold your own, and they have to make sure that you're able to do that to the best of their abilities. There's still people that they know are going to kill it and then get up there and freeze. I didn't, but I never thought I would, because I was ready.
That's amazing. That's unbelievable. What an experience.
It was unbelievable. And honestly, just like without a doubt, from my entrepreneurial career, the best thing I've ever done, by far. Nothing even comes close in comparison. And I tell people all the time, Shark Tank is a real show. It is legitimate. They do not tell you what to say. It is completely organic. And if you have, a good idea, a good product, and you are a hustler, you have got to apply for the show. It's a show that changes lives, period. It does.
And a question around Shark Tank, just for people that don't necessarily know, is it all product driven pitches, or can it be like a marketplace business, or are they strictly looking at product?
No, it's not all product driven. I mean, it can be software, it can be technology, it could be artificial intelligence, and anything that you've built, that has IP behind artificial intelligence. It can be an abundance of things. You have to remember that the sharks are there to invest. And so what they're going to be looking for is basically a return on investment. Now, that could be a return on investment for just about anything. So again, it's just an investment platform. In the US, it's Shark Tank. It's also Dragon's Den. There's a lot, there's some other spinoffs on the show, overseas. But it doesn't have to be a product. It can definitely be, other investment opportunities, certainly.
Oh, okay. Amazing. So for the listeners who don't know, can you please share with our audience what Shower Toga as a company does? And if you could please share with us a bit more about the company itself.
Well, I invented Shower Toga, not really to start as a company, which is interestingly enough, sometimes how the best ideas come to fruition, is that you fix a problem for yourself.
Yes.
And inevitably, when you fix a problem for yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're also maybe fixing a problem for somebody else, because, we're all humans on this planet and we all have similar issues, and things that we want to have to make our lives easier. Yes. I was an athlete, or I am, except for COVID right now. We don't have Spartan races.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we're dying to get back to the races. But I was, my husband and myself and my son, our son, did Spartan races all over the world. And it was what we did as a sport, as a hobby, as a way to just better ourselves physically and mentally. And when we're done doing the races, some people may know them as obstacle course races, mud runs, military style races, for those that aren't familiar with Spartan. When we're done, we're covered from head to toe in mud. We've, so at some races, we've run 14 miles and done 50 obstacles. and we're really, really incredibly filthy. And so I needed a way to clean up after those races before getting in the car, in some cases to fly home, to go to the airport and fly home, and in some cases to drive, 2, 3, 4, 8 hours back. Yeah. And so that was the beginning of building the product shower toga. It turned into something I made for myself. And so many people at the races wanted to come borrow, that thing from me. Yes. I have my quotes on right now. That thing, Kressa, can I use that thing you made? And I thought, well, maybe there's something here. And I had so many people ask me, will you make me one? And I'm like, no, like it took me a month just to sew this one. I truly took a sewing class in downtown Woodstock, Georgia, to learn how to just sew at all. So I was like, no. So the first thing that I did in looking into whether or not this was something I wanted to pursue, because it was definitely intimidating. I'd never produced a product, and that's all new to me. I mean, I'm still learning every day. But so I started, the first thing I did is I contacted an attorney, and we went through to make sure that we were not infringing on anybody else's intellectual property, because that was at the time the most important thing to me. We went through and did all of our due diligence, filed for our patents, filed for, got our trademarks, copyrights, did all of that. And that was a huge investment before we even knew if anything was going to work, but it was the right way to do it. And then I told my husband, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm still in the horse industry at this time, right? But I said, look, I'll do a Kickstarter. And if the Kickstarter funds, then that will tell us that there's a market for this product. Of course, we think it's genius, and all of our OCR racing friends think it's genius, but that doesn't really tell you if it's a viable product for the market. Yeah. So we did the Kickstarter, and we got funded. And we didn't make a killing on it or anything, because we didn't really know how to market a Kickstarter. We were learning that too. At the same time, I had a full-time job. So but we got funded on the Kickstarter, and just so happens my manufacturer is also a good friend of ours. So we worked, got the manufacturing done and funded the Kickstarter, and, sent everybody's shower togas out to them. And then it was interesting because people, once they use the shower toga, they love it. They love it, love it, love it. That's why we have like all 5-star reviews. Now, what I will say is it's goofy looking. It just is. And I don't act like it's not. I mean, it just is goofy looking. So I think that it's one of those things that once people see other people that were using it, they're like, okay, I got to have that. And then once people use it, that's it. They're our biggest cheerleaders. They're our marketing, agency. They're the ones that tell everybody, okay, look, once you use it, you don't care what it looks like, because it is just a lifesaver. And so that kind of started evolving over time. And that's what gave me, I think, the confidence to really push for Shark Tank, just because everybody loved it so much that I thought, I'm gonna push for Shark Tank.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So we have other products now in the pipeline, and we have a ton of things going on within the company. But it's all just been one step in front of the other.
That's incredible. So what would you say some of your biggest lessons and learnings have been within your career as an entrepreneur? I mean, maybe there's been multiple, but what really stands out for you?
I think the most important lesson, if I'm talking to other entrepreneurs, which I do quite a bit now, and not because I'm an expert, but maybe more so because I'm not an expert. And I think that it makes it a little bit easier for everybody to, for a lot of entrepreneurs to relate to me, because I'm really no different than they are. I didn't go to school for business. I don't have some big giant career in business, in manufacturing, in investing, in, any of those things. I'm just a regular person, just like any other startup entrepreneur is right now. Yeah. And I would say that the best thing I can tell them is it's really about hustle. Because if you don't believe in your product, and if you're not willing to work, 22 hours a day in some cases, then it's probably not for you. And that's okay too. Just like, me going to get my, get my law career going, which is what I wanted to be a lawyer. And I just couldn't finish college. I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. I wasn't smart enough in that regard. And it just wasn't for me. So I'm in awe. I meet people that are attorneys or law. I wanted to be a family.
It's always amazing. You always feel like you're in the presence of some greatness.
And I'm like, I wanted to be a family law lawyer because I grew up with some issues, with my dad and my mom fighting for us kids when we were growing up. And there was a lot going on in my childhood. So I really wanted to be a family law lawyer. And I was a political science major. And then when it came time to going to law school, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't be broke anymore. I just want to be in the courtroom, which it doesn't work that way.
No.
So, and so what I tell people is that you really have to understand what you're good at, and you have to embrace that. And if you don't know if entrepreneurship is good for you and you start the process and you get tired quickly or you get overwhelmed, because it happens. I mean, even as as strong-willed as I am, I have days when I'm just like, I'm in tears. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. But then I wake up the next morning and I'm like ready to go. Yeah. So you have to read yourself well enough to know if it's the type of thing for you. And to me, I still think that's the most important thing. And I guess second to that would be brutal honesty. That's one of the reasons that I think Mark Cuban and I get along so well, my investor, because
he's great. I love Mark. I think he's really good.
He's amazing. And he's so involved in not just Shower Toga, but all of his portfolio companies. People are shocked when they talk to me and they find out how involved Mark is. I truly can email Mark right now, and within 10 minutes, sometimes 2 minutes, he emails me back. No matter what. It's amazing. So, it's just one of those things that I think that you have to be, you have to be raw. You have to be honest. You have to be raw. You have to be able to handle a lot of stress and a lot of struggle. And the roller coaster ride is one hell of a ride.
Yes, it is.
For me, it's worth it. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be worth it to somebody else, because for somebody else, they're going to have other qualities that I don't have that they're amazing at. Yeah. But, my best advice for entrepreneurs is, first of all, make sure you want it. Secondly, don't ever try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Lay it out there, be an open book, be organic, because that's the only way you're going to gain customer confidence and certainly investor confidence.
Absolutely. And you also, I think just being honest with where the pitfalls are as well as where your strengths are is obviously hugely beneficial when you get an investor or you have an investor in the business, because then they can pull in, other people's strengths. So
that's exactly right. I mean, I have, there's different issues that we may have. We may have an issue with Amazon, or we may have an issue with, certain fulfillment. And I have to go to my team at Mark's and directly to Mark on certain circumstances about those particular subjects and say, I'm confused here. And they can come back to me with their expertise and say, here's how we can help guide you to that solution. Yeah. But if you're one of those entrepreneurs, it's always going to be like, I've got everything figured out. Everything's perfect. It's all unicorns and glitter.
And rainbow.
Investors aren't stupid.
They're not. They wouldn't be in the position of investing if they were.
Exactly. It's a relationship. Investing isn't, to me, investing isn't just about money. I mean, I have to do the work. My team does the work, but it's also about relationship building. I think that's incredibly important, because that's the only way that, otherwise just, go to a bank and get a loan, what's the point? Investors have especially somebody like Mark or any of the sharks, what they bring to the table is not just the funds, but the relationship and the contacts. And
of course, and that's super valuable.
it's beyond valuable. You know, I joked around with Mark and with my team that had I known how much benefit I was going to get, I would have done it for no money. I would have just given him 20% of the business and just gone, it's okay, you don't even have to pay me.
But I also think where that's so amazing is the fact that they see the benefit of the investment. And I think that shows a lot of faith within yourself that they're willing to put up that money or invest that money. So
I take it very seriously. Now, I mean, I don't, you know, maybe there's, you know, people that have been on the show that don't take it seriously, but I take it, to me, it's just a vote of confidence. And, I mean, I take that seriously with my customers too, with my resellers. I really am kind of honored and humbled when anybody has, you know, the faith in me and my product, you know, even if it's somebody ordering one shower toga, like that's still somebody that's put their faith in me. And I think that's just, you know, I think that's one of the good qualities of me. I have some bad ones too, but we won't talk about it.
Well, I don't think it's too bad. I mean, I think we all have our pitfalls. So, but sure. The main thing is where your strengths reside. So that actually leads me into the next question. Referring to your being the chief executive officer, I want to talk about leadership or the lack of leadership from both an entrepreneurial perspective and on a global scale. Mm-hmm. So what would you say makes your leadership style different, and what do you believe needs to change the current narrative from an entrepreneurial and global perspective, and what do you believe you do differently when leading, and can you give us some examples?
Well, okay, so to that point, I personally don't think we're lacking in entrepreneurial leadership, either within this country or, you know, globally in some countries. Obviously, there's plenty of countries where the entrepreneurial spirit needs to be nurtured a lot more, because we have brilliant minds all over the world, in incredibly rural populations and in places that are poverty stricken. There are brilliant minds in all of those areas. So I think that, but with that said, I think that entrepreneurship is highlighted more than it's ever been, ever in history, potentially. I think it's appreciated more than it's ever been. I think it is explained better than it's ever been. I think there was a period of time, you know, years ago when there was a perception that it was just kind of a quick, easy money, and that you're on a yacht, you know, wearing gold chains and a Cosmo and Jimmy Choos, and you're just making all this money on the side. I think that shows like Shark Tank have exposed the reality of being an entrepreneur. And I think things like us doing this podcast today is also exposing the pitfalls and the benefits of being an entrepreneur. So I personally feel like this is the best time, you know, kind of in our history from a social standpoint, to be an entrepreneur and to explain and to share platforms. And look what we have now. You know, we have something different than we had 30 years ago. We have the internet, we have social, we have communications that are like never before. And so I don't personally see that there's a lot of pitfalls in, you know, in being an entrepreneur and in having all of the tools that we're able to grab, to learn from. So I guess my answer to that question would be that I just haven't seen that as being a big roadblock.
But as someone who leads, you know, whether your business is 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 people, I mean, what would you say is your strongest leadership skill? And have you got any examples you could give us that makes you different? Because for some people, they feel that the person that's leading them is a very good listener and, you know, is willing to take things on board. So I just, from your perspective.
I'm a horrible listener. Okay, so, you know, I wish I could answer that with a bunch of positive things, but again, that wouldn't necessarily be true to me being completely honest. I'll tell you, I think somebody like Sarah Blakely who
Oh,
is
she's amazing.
she's my female hero, and I have
Yes.
talked about her in a couple of podcasts, and I still have never spoken to her. And if I ever did, I would probably start crying. But she is, to me, like, if you ask somebody like Sarah that question, I just feel like she could come back at you with this incredibly powerful, message and inspiration. And so I'm not going to be able to do that today. So what I'm going to tell you today, Kelly, is that I have had to work on that. I am a control freak. I always have been. When I owned my building company, I have recognized now that I was probably horrible to work for. I wasn't, not because I was like mean or anything like that. It was kind of one of those things where if somebody wasn't willing to work as hard as I was, then it was very, very frustrating for me. And the reality is that somebody working for you, maybe they're not that they're not willing to work as hard, but they work differently. And so, I was in this manic state all the time, which I would never recommend for anybody. No. But it's like, if they weren't also in this miserable manic state, then I got frustrated. So yes. I've had to learn through that process to not only appreciate that not everybody wants to live this manic lifestyle, no. Or should they, but maybe I have something to learn from them. Yes. And that will enrich my life. So I think that, as crazy as it sounds, my leadership skills have been better since I started Shower Toga with my team, because I'm trying to take, more from them and grasp more from my team and listen better. And yes. They're teaching me more probably than I'm teaching them right now. I will say that what I feel like I have been able to teach them is definitely hustle. Is they see my work ethic, and I think that that's motivating to my team. And I think that, everything that we're trying to do from a philanthropic standpoint is also a motivation. So I try to lead by example, but I'm definitely getting as much from my team from a leadership stand as I'm giving them.
Amazing. No, I love that. And it's total different perspective. So, and it's growth for you, which is great. No, I think it's amazing, because I think many people just look at it from, the founder's perspective, but, it's like you're saying, if you're learning from your team and the people around you, that's also very insightful and something that people can take on board for sure.
Yeah, because everybody has something to offer. I mean, and they really do. And sometimes I may not get along with somebody on my team, or I decide it's not the right fit, and then that's okay too. But the people that are on my team currently, we just have a really good relationship, and there's good banter. And the other thing is that they're the types of people that are comfortable enough to tell me, Kressa, you're kind of losing it right now. This doesn't make sense, and this is why. And I need those types of people to kind of check me.
Yes.
Because if they don't check me, I tend to go off on a rampage, or not angry rampage, but like I'm like the Energizer Bunny, and I'll keep going down that path, and they're like, I'll give you an example. I have a social media team. It's called Guide Social, and there's 2 people on my team, Matt and Lauren, and then they have other people, but they'll stop me. I'll be like a hawk on all of our social media platforms, and I go through the analytics, and I'm like, hey, what about this and this and this? And they're like, whoa, you have got to stop micromanaging this. And this is why what you're thinking is incorrect. What you're thinking is correct is incorrect. And then I go, ooh, okay.
Yes.
But I need people like that in my team to check me. And I'm okay with that. As long as it makes sense, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID-19 has obviously turned our worlds upside down and inside out. And some industries have done well. And others have been badly affected. So what would you say you have done to adapt during these challenging times? And can you give us some examples? And how has this changed your thinking in terms of the future of the company? And are there strategies or plans in place for the future?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things I said in my pitch on Shark Tank was that my dream, for the future, not even the near future, but my dream for the future of Shower Toga was that I would, with my manufacturer, come up with, 2 shower toga options. One would be kind of the direct to consumer shower toga option, which is what we have now. Yes. And that we would build on that, once that model was really solid, we would build on that and have a biodegradable shower toga. So because I'll give you an example. If you have another tsunami, in Japan, and you have 10,000 people that are without, showering facilities, and there's hygiene issues and, infection and cuts and bruises. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. If you have that many people and FEMA or Red Cross is giving out shower togas, they don't break down in the environment. The direct to consumer product, the shower toga we have now, doesn't. So it was always in my plan to have a biodegradable breakdown version. So kind of that was always my plan. My plan was never from a kind of a healthcare standpoint, because it just wasn't on my radar, really. No. And so what happened with this is, I would love to tell everybody that we pivoted because I'm so smart, and maybe that's what I should tell people, but it's actually not true. The reason that we pivoted is because our customers who already owned shower togas, who happened to maybe be in healthcare or police, firefighters, first responders, were tagging us in social saying, "Oh, look what I'm using my shower toga for now." And
wow, that's amazing.
It was really unbelievable. So my team's like, look, we have a lot of people using them to, now we're not a medical company. We don't tell people, hey, you put on a shower toga and you're going to wash the COVID off. That's not at all what we do. So I have to be very clear on that. Those are our attorneys speaking, probably.
Yeah.
But, it's no different than, you have a mask and it has a percentage of getting rid of some of the particles. If you shower off and you're scrubbing and you're sudsing up, it's going to decontaminate you to a degree from lots of different things. Yeah. So we, the first thing I did, because at the time that COVID came out, I kind of, for me anyway, I was like scared to death of it. I was really, really scared to death of it. And I was scared to death for everybody. And it almost to me felt like the sky was falling. So
it felt like we were in a bad movie.
It was literally like a Hollywood movie. And so it was funny not funny, but it was when it started, and my team's like, look, we've got people using this to like shower off. I'm like, okay, I've got to talk to Mark. I've got to talk to Mark and see, can I set up a donation program? Can I just give them away to healthcare workers? What can I do? And Mark came back in and he's like, you got to keep a handle on it. But, we've got a lot of inventory, and Mark is all about, giving back. He's very involved.
Yeah, for sure. I've even seen that. I mean, I follow him quite a bit, so.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, at that point, when COVID first hit, I kind of just didn't care about the money anymore. I knew I just had a lot of shower togas sitting in inventory, and I just wanted to get them in the hands of people that they could help. And so we just kind of started this program where we're like, all right, send us an email, send us a photo of your badge. If you can't afford one, maybe you've become a one-income household, we'll donate one to you. If you can't afford one, use code COVID and you get 50% off, which just brings it down to our cost.
Right.
And so we did that. And the thing about it, and Mark warned me, but it really went insane. And
I can imagine.
I have not won the lottery yet. So after about, I don't know the exact number, but around $100,000 between discounts and donations, we had to kind of just organize it and put it in a more organized place. And it's in a more organized place now, which is nice. And it has also opened up my eyes to the possibilities of, the healthcare field. And so just this week, actually, we're getting set up with a company called Medline. And Medline is, basically kind of the Amazon for hospitals and nursing homes and medical companies to purchase through Medline. Medline's huge. They're a gigantic, wonderful family-owned company. So now we're going to have shower togas to where hospitals can issue a PO and, potentially give them to their employees if they'd like. And if they don't want to do that, then we still have a discount code available for healthcare workers. But it just, our customers were the people that kind of organically shifted us to helping out, doing what we can during the pandemic. And, like I tell people, the benefit to it is, hey, when things get better, you're going to love your shower toga for camping or going to the beach or going hiking or boating or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it
That's
was just
amazing.
an organic pivot that was brought on by our customers. And so it's really worth listening to your customers. Not all of them, because some of them don't have the knowledge. Some of them you have to just take with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Because the customer is not always right. I mean, that's not accurate.
That comment about a customer is always right is not correct.
No, the customer is not always right. I mean, the customer can be right about reviews. If they don't like your product, then they're right. If they don't like how you handle customer service, then they are correct. But about how to run your business, that's your business. You have to come up with the solutions for that. And for us, we're just appreciative that enough people kind of tagged us and said, look, this has been helpful for me before I've gone into my home, and maybe in my scrubs from a horrible days, of tragedy. And I can at least get like completely clean and showered off. And it, doesn't mean you're not still carrying something, but it certainly is going to get you clean in a way that you never would have if you had just walked into your house after your shift.
Absolutely. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been?
Shark Tank. I mean, it is, that's absolutely my biggest career highlight. I mean, it's so far beyond any of my other career highlights that it's almost hard to even bring up the others. I mean, I feel if I think back on like the things I've done that I'm proud of, in my show jumping business, I think I'm incredibly proud that I was able to work with a gentleman by the name of Joe Farges. Joe Farges represented the United States in the Olympics as a show jumping athlete. And Joe and I are dear friends, have been for years. I started out riding and clinicking with him as a rider. And then when I got more involved in the business side of things, just the fact that I was able to work with Joe he's the most honest, honorable, amazing human being. And just the fact that he allowed me to work with him was without a doubt a highlight in my life. And his friendship is still a highlight in my life. So, from a business standpoint, that would be, right up there. And then definitely, obviously, Shark Tank. And then, when you end up with the deal with somebody like Mark Cuban.
I mean, that's a massive, you must have gone, wow. What is that feeling? Your sense of whew.
Yeah. And, so what it does is it just makes you want to do even better. It's like somebody like Mark believed in me and believed in Shower Toga. The casting and the producers of Shark Tank believed in me. And it's like, those are all like these moments that catapult your confidence and let you know, wow, these really amazing human beings, think I'm worthy of this time, this money, this effort, whatever it is. And those are the high points. And, I'm not going to let them down. So, that's just what it comes down to. I'm not going to let them down. I mean, I take it incredibly seriously. And I'm really, really, really fortunate that I am able to, have that feeling inside my gut when I think back on some of the things I've done.
Absolutely. So I want to obviously talk more about the investment aspect of business. This seems to be a big point of discussion around why less than 5% of female founders receive investments for their business in a billion-dollar industry or multi-billion-dollar industry. So firstly, why do you believe there is still so much inequality when it comes to women accessing funding? And do you see this shifting? And what do you believe are the biggest mistakes that women make during pitching? You know, these are just discussions I have as a founder myself with other female founders. So I'd just be interested to know your take.
Well, it may not be necessarily what you think, or it may be what you think. I don't know. For me, I've never considered myself as a woman to be like a minority. And not that we're not. I mean, I'm not dismissing anybody else's beliefs in that. To me, when I look at the issues with investors right now in our country at this time in 2020, and you know, even before COVID, I think since COVID, it's actually become more obvious that there are other minority groups, Blacks, Hispanics, you know, the list goes on from more of an ethnic standpoint. Those are the people, to me, that I see struggling with getting investment opportunities.
Yes.
That to me just catapults the example of man versus woman.
Yes.
Because that needs to truly be addressed. That is something that I think is so one-sided right now that it needs to be talked about, it needs to be discussed, it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be fixed. People should be given investment opportunities based on their idea and their brain, and not because of their sex or the color of their skin or where they're from, or you know, any of that other stuff. I know, you know, obviously, you know, there are a lot of situations where women have to be a little bit stronger and a little bit tougher, and but I guess my answer to that would be stronger and be tougher. I mean, you know, you have to be, so go in there.
Go ahead and do it.
Fight it. You know, I mean, it was interesting because when I was on Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and we get along very well now. I should say we get along very well. The guy is super smart. He's actually an absolute blast. He's so much fun. But he, you know, he plays that kind of bad guy. And he and I just fought on our episode, like fought the entire time. It was this banter of arguing. But I just fought with him, human to human, not man to woman, not, you know, it's like, you fight for what you believe in. It doesn't matter if you're in a room full of men. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And in your mind, if it matters, it's going to matter and it's going to come across. So as a woman, you have to do the best you can to get that out of your mind. Don't go in feeling defeatist. Don't go in thinking I'm in a room full of men and I'm the only woman and they're not going to take me seriously. No, you go in there and you think I'm a badass bitch and these guys are going to listen to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you have to do. But I do think that you can't necessarily have that same attitude as a Black person in this country trying to get an investment. I think that is much more difficult and unfair and unwarranted and needs to be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a founder prepares a pitch deck of a company concept or idea, what are the key aspects of information that need to go into a deck when you are investing in a business or startup? And what do you look for in the process of the presentation of a pitch? You know, either from the perspective of you pitching to somebody or if somebody comes to you, what would you say the key aspects are? Because there's so many versions and some people will look at your deck and go, this is great. And then other people can shred you to, you know, to smithereens.
Right. Exactly. Well, and you know what, I sometimes think of it, the analogy that I give it in my head would be more like being an actor or an actress in Hollywood. Okay, so what you hear when you're an actor or an actress in Hollywood is that you go in and you get slammed down 100 times and then you get picked and then, you know, you win an Academy Award. I mean, look, those things happen. So you have to be okay with being told no and you can't let it beat you up. But what I feel like, now Shark Tank's probably a little bit differently. So I'm going to separate these two topics here.
Okay.
I think with Shark Tank, they have built up enough wealth, and they have actually built up also kind of a sixth sense about the person coming on. Like, I feel like, especially, for me, I mean, it would be Mark, but I'm sure they all have this sense about them. I feel like they can watch us, listen to us talk, see how we're communicating with everybody in the room, and they have done this enough to know where they see some successful aspects with you. Now, if you're going to be building a deck for an investment group that is not, to the level of the Shark Tank millionaires and billionaires, then you have to understand that what they're looking for is a return on investment. They are not necessarily going to care how nice you are, how philanthropic you are. Those are all things that can come later that they may appreciate. But if they're actually going to invest in your company, they want to know, what is the big plan? What's the return on investment? What are the risks? Don't go in saying, hey, look, we're going to make $10 million this year and you're going to make your money back in 6 months, because, then they know you're full of shit.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you have to go in and kind of say, these are the struggles we're having. This is what I'm working on. This is what we see as, best case scenario outcome. This is what we see as, potentially a worst case scenario outcome. It could take you 2 years to get your money back. It could take you 5 years. And here's the path for both of those. And we're looking for a partner to help us with that journey. If you're only looking for an investor, then as a small business, then to be honest with you, I would go to an SBA and look at loan possibilities so that you're not giving away as much equity. If you're looking for help and guidance, then, that's a different story and you're going to give away a little bit more equity. But you have to remember, as an investor, they're looking for the return on the investment. They're not going to sit there and go, you know what, I just like this person. They're really nice, and we're going to give them $10 million because we think they might make it. I mean, it's an investment. It's money. And they want to make money on their money. Otherwise, they're not going to have money for very long.
No, exactly. So you've had a diverse career, but you've also had your own personal challenges after being diagnosed with breast cancer. So how did this alter your perspective in terms of life, family, and entrepreneurship, and having to refocus your energies and priorities?
Well, I think, for me, the diagnosis with breast cancer actually turned out to not, I mean, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing good about it. But if you're going to find a silver lining in there, so the diagnosis to breast cancer led me to wanting to live a healthier life. Kind of did let me know that, you start to, I was lucky. We caught mine very, very early. I had a double mastectomy, but I was incredibly fortunate. And, a lot of men and women have it so much worse. So, this is just from my perspective of catching it incredibly early. But, you still have to deal with, your mortality. You still hear those words, you have cancer, and it's the worst words, besides, losing, I think, to me, besides losing a child. Give me cancer any day. Right. That you can hear. And so for me, it just meant that if I could get beyond that in my head and realize that I'm okay now, which still takes a while. It takes a while for your brain to realize, okay, you're probably past the cancer diagnosis now and you can move on with your life. But once you move on with your life, it's like, for me, it just gave me some, gas in the tank. It's like I pushed the pedal a little bit harder, and I realized that, we're not promised each day. I mean, it could be from anything. It could be from a car accident, it could be from whatever, but we're not promised each day. And so I wanted to get healthier. I wanted to enjoy my life more and not just be so stressed all the time. And so that's what led me to actually start doing Spartan races, because we had seen it on TV. And of course, this is years and years ago. But I thought that just looks like fun. And I wanted to just do more things that looked like fun, that weren't things that I would normally do. And I kind of thought, oh, I'm going to go do one race, right? Just to try it. And that was it. Like, I was hooked. I felt so good about myself when I was done. And I sucked. I mean, I sucked so bad at that first race. I'm surprised I even finished it.
But the fact that you did it, that's the amazing thing.
Right. And I just I felt so good and I felt so strong, and I had, everybody's on the course helping each other. And it was just this camaraderie that I hadn't had in a long time. I mean, of course I had my dear, dear friends, but not to take anything from those relationships, but when you're on the course with a bunch of strangers and people are helping you and lifting you and pulling and helping, I mean, it's something you cannot explain. So, my breast cancer led me to doing the Spartan races, and without doing Spartan races, I never would have invented shower toga. So,
so it always organic.
Exactly. And without it, I never, ever would have invented shower toga, because I wouldn't have had the need. So
amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that diagnosis sucks, but it's funny. Sometimes those things can lead to other things, and you just have to have, some faith that, if it gets better and you try to make your life more enjoyable and more rewarding, that other branches of the tree will extend and there'll be other opportunities that you never would have experienced before. And I think that goes for anything in your life that's traumatic.
Absolutely. So a big part of your passion is the environment. So how does this play into the development of your product? And is this something that is part of your key marketing strategy?
It's actually not something that's part of our marketing strategy. And maybe it will be later, because, for me right now, it's just something that I'm trying to work on because I think it's the right thing to do, not because I'm trying to get more sales or whatever. But, for me, when we knew, we wanted to kind of get into the disaster relief market, I mean, for me, it was just one of those things. Like, I thought about, well, what if there's a hurricane in Texas, right? And, the Red Cross gives out 10,000 shower togas. I know, first of all, they're machine washable. They last forever. They last way longer than we ever planned on them lasting, to be honest with you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, it is, and it's funny because when we first kind of came up with the product and we talked about it, we thought, okay, well, if somebody has to buy one, once a year, it's still an incredible value. Turns out I've got people that have had them for 3 years, and I'm like, well, I guess this isn't a big repeat purchase. So I better come up with other products down the pipeline.
Yeah.
So that's actually been awesome. But, we didn't think they were going to last that long, but you don't know until that time goes by. So I'm sitting there thinking, if I have people in Texas and, first of all, they have, no running water. They've been in hurricane situations. They have no showers. They have no electricity. They have all these horrible circumstances. And so, are they going to keep the shower toga? Are they going to get displaced from it? At least if they can get cleaned up, and if they need to just throw things away because they can't carry a lot with them, I'd feel like a kind of a jerk if there was thousands of shower togas and now they're just sitting in a landfill. I don't know. It just wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to be a part of, even though the benefit is obviously a wonderful benefit from a humanitarian standpoint, because infection, and disease kills just as many people in a natural disaster as the natural disaster itself. So, there's a wonderful humanitarian effort, but if you could actually do both, where you can help people and it's not going to screw up our environment any worse than it's already screwed up, then that's a huge benefit. And we knew it was going to take a long time. I mean, if I just started marketing to FEMA and Red Cross and Rubicon and these other disaster relief companies, I could have started that 2 years ago. But I decided I'm just going to wait until we had the biodegradable product. And now we have it. So
that's amazing.
We haven't manufactured it yet. We have, in fact, hold on. There it is. this is it.
Awesome.
This is the only one that exists, by the way.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah, so we got it in and we tested it, and so now all we're doing is waiting on some of the heat sealing for the pocket in the front, for that to get finalized, and it's completely biodegradable with the exception of the little plastic toggle, which will break down a lot easier than the blend that we have on the original shower toga. So, you know, I would expect in the next 3 to 6 months that will be available in bulk. You know, it won't really be available in the direct-to-consumer market as, you know, as active, because we want our direct-to-consumer people to use it, throw it in the washing machine, use it again. You know,
yeah, that's
we'll
amazing.
have them for sale, but not the FEMA, Red Cross, those big guys. They need to be using something that's biodegradable that people can still use, you know, 5, 10, 15 times. But if they get rid of it, it just is going to break down in an acceptable fashion for our planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So what would you say is different about shower toga that gives you a market edge?
It's the only thing like it. I mean, there is absolutely
I've
nothing
never
else
seen
like
anything.
No, and you know, and that's why we've protected ourselves so well from a legal standpoint, because you know there are wonderful products out there. There are changing towels, there are changing dresses, there are wonderful products out there for changing your clothes. And again, not to take anything from them, those are awesome things, and a lot of people use those. But what I was looking for was something that you could not only change in, but something that you could shower in. And although it's interesting, shower toga looks super simple, and we'll get people commenting going, you know, I could just sew my own. And I'm thinking, you can, go ahead. Like, it's not the same. It's not. The silver that we have on the outside, a lot of people think that's the color of the fabric. It's not. We have a recipe on the inside, which is a blend. And then the silver is actually a coating, and the coating is sprayed on to the fabric, and that took a really long time to get right.
Yes.
It is not easy.
It's a science. It's a science.
Absolutely. My manufacturer happens to also be, they work in the PPE space for medical companies, and they're, you know, he's a good friend, but he's the CEO of a huge company. And, you know, there's a lot of science behind it. You know, we had to come up with a way that, first of all, shower toga was really, really lightweight, because we wanted it to be under that 6 ounces for primitive backpacking and hiking. Every ounce makes a big difference for them when they're hiking the Appalachian Trail, or, you know, any number of these other large hikes. Every single ounce makes a big difference. So we really wanted to be under that 6 ounces, and we are, but we also needed it to be strong to maintain its strength, to wick water away. And then on top of that, you know, the last thing, kind of the thing I threw at them was, I want it to be machine washable. It doesn't need to go in the dryer. You just take it off and shake it off. But, you know, those things are not easy to make happen. So it's a very interesting, it's actually a really interesting product, and there's a lot of science behind it, even though it looks like the easiest thing ever. And you could go down to the store and, you know, buy some fabric and sew it. And you can. It's not actually the same thing. Not at all.
So you have touched on this earlier, but I just wanted to dive more into it. So you have a passion for philanthropy and have contributed and supported causes during COVID-19. So can you share with us more about the causes you are involved with, and the impact you've had? And can you give us some examples?
Yeah, sure. You know, one of the things I will say is that the thing that I really want to get shower toga to is some sort of campaign where shower togas are able to get into the hands of the homeless population. Yes. That would be a dream for me. COVID has kind of pushed that back and put it more in the hands right now of you know, the healthcare workers and people on the front lines. My plan after the dust settles from this, you know, pandemic situation would be to get shower togas into the hands of the homeless population. What that looks like, I'm not quite sure yet. And one of the things I will say that's been really interesting to me, and actually a little bit frustrating, and in some ways it makes me kind of angry, is we have reached out to some organizations. They've reached out to us. And when we've done our due diligence about some of these organizations, it's not very appealing. It's really interesting how many organizations are not really giving back in the way that they claim they are.
Yeah.
And so, you know, trying to figure out how to get disbursement to a homeless population and going through an organization that's completely, you know, upfront has been more challenging than I would have expected. And I'll give you an example, and I won't name the organization, but there was a company in LA, Los Angeles, who appeared to be a great company that, you know, had you know, was a 501c corp, and they dispersed items to the homeless. Well, upon further due diligence, we also found out that this same person had another company that was hired by the city of Los Angeles to go in and displace the homeless. So actually what would happen is that the one company would go in and displace the homeless. Then this other company that was the same core person, although it appeared they weren't, but they were, would come in and give the homeless this pack of items, which they wanted to include a shower toga in that, right after they took all of their stuff and threw it away.
So no, that's disgusting.
I'm just like, no, I don't want, I mean, look, yeah, obviously there's an issue with the homeless population and the tent camps all over the country. And, you know, I'm not a fan of that either. No. But the other side of that is, I just don't feel like you can play both sides. And I just felt like that was a really icky thing that they were playing both sides. It just felt gross.
Yeah.
And that's
just definitely not authentic.
No, they're making money on both sides. I mean, just because somebody is a 501c doesn't mean they're not making a ton of money and, you know, paying their CEO. I mean, you know, you have to really go in and look at it. So what I've tried to do recently is reach out directly to cities and city organizations that have nothing to do with these, you know, with these other groups. And that's been a lot harder as well. So I'm not sure exactly where we'll end up and how we'll end up getting that done. But that's what I see as far as my philanthropic effort in the future, once COVID dies down, is to figure out how to get it directly into the hands of the people that could, you know, just sometimes you just need a shower. It's just dignity, you know, I mean.
Of course. And it's a basic, I feel those are basic human rights that people are entitled to or should be entitled to. It's not a luxury.
Right. I mean, and it's also hygienic for all of us. I mean, it's not just, you know, it's just a good thing to do, you know, give showers to people that are homeless. You never know what that shower will do, or the ability to just get cleaned up will do for that person's mental state. You know, and I run around now, you know, I'm in California, and you know, my kids make fun of me all the time, and have for actually a couple of years, because I do it all the time. You know, we'll be, you know, driving around or whatever, and I remember my daughter and I stopped at like a dollar store, and there was a guy in the parking lot of the dollar store with a jug of water, and I'm like, here, you know, and I give him a shower toga and kind of show him what to do. And you know, sometimes it's appreciated. Sometimes they kind of look at you like you have two heads. But all in all, in the end, I'll run around giving them out when I see people that need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can't do that to forever.
No. I mean, you also have a business to run.
Right. I can't run around driving around for people that look like they need a shower. I'd be like that crazy woman driving around looking for people that need a shower. You know, I mean, I just want to figure out a way to get it into the hands of people. And do it the right way without a bunch of red tape and, you know, money going to things that it shouldn't be going to.
No, absolutely. So that leads me to the final question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and how would you like to be remembered, or what legacy would you like to leave?
Well, I think I'll start with the last question. To me, my legacy is my children and my grandchildren. Yeah. And if I leave nothing else behind but my amazing kids and my, amazing grandchildren, and them being just really good, decent, wonderful human beings, the rest of it is not really, that important. I don't need to, feel like I helped save the world. I mean, if I know I've done some good, then that's enough. Whether or not people recognize that, that doesn't really matter to me. It's always appreciated, don't get me wrong, but it's not like I need to be remembered for that. I need to make sure I'm putting good people on the planet with my kids and my grandkids. Yeah. That's the most important thing. And, the other thing, as far as, talking kind of to other entrepreneurs coming up, is just, make sure that it's really what you want. Make sure that it's going to make you happy, and it's going to be the thing that makes you want to get up in the morning. And as crazy as it sounds, my little product, shower toga, is what really makes me want to get up in the morning. Every single time I get a sale, I get excited. People think I may not know about it. I know. I watch all the time. I keep up with it. I watch all of our customer service. I go in and respond to people, sometimes, I love it. And so if you're not going to feel passionate about that, then find something you feel passionate about, because, life is short.
Yes, absolutely.
You got to love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where your journey's taken you.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny? And, 6 months to a year from now, maybe I'll be like, okay, we've gotten the hands of all these homeless people, and everybody's, it's really, I would love that. That would be great. I'd be happy to come back on.
Amazing. So if people want to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
Instagram is shower_toga. Facebook is shower toga. Our email is showertoga@gmail.com. They can reach out to any of those platforms. We're also on TikTok, under shower toga. We're on Twitter, which I don't use very much because it's Twitter. So we're pretty easy to find. Our website is, showertoga.com. And they can also message us straight from our website. We are on Amazon. They can also order from Amazon. So yeah, I mean, Shower Toga off of our direct-to-consumer website is where we do most of our business. And then Facebook and Instagram are where we do most of our communications with our customers.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kressa, and we'll look forward to having you back.